So, healthcare. Blimey. Let me speak from my personal experience. In 2012, whilst shaving one day, I noticed a small lump in my neck. Really small. And like all blokes do, scratch. Thought it was a spot or a pore, dirty pore or something like that. So didn't pay any attention to it. Anyhow, after a few weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, this spot had got a bit bigger. And it was a little lump under the skin. So, you know, as all blokes do, I left it. Go away. A couple of months go by and this lump is now the size of a pea. And I think, okay, well it's not in the skin, it's deeper in. So I go to the doctors. There starts the journey. So, for the next year, I was in and out of doctors and hospitals having various tests. If you live in the UK, you probably understand what I mean. Test, wait for the results a few weeks later, then make a decision, another test. Wait for a few weeks, have another test, wait for a few weeks, wait for results, And that's what it was, and it was a cycle of this test, blood tests, cholesterol tests, you name it, and then as the tests escalated, because they weren't getting the results or the answers they needed, then we went down the road of scans, x-rays, ultrasounds, CT scans, etc. Fast forward to December 2012, Christmas Eve, and I was going back to the hospital for the results of the latest test. And this was mundane, this was something that I was doing once or twice a month, so nothing unusual. But there I go, Christmas Eve, into the hospital, see the consultant, and he says, "Oh, what are you doing now?" I said, "Well, I'm doing what all blokes are doing on Christmas Eve. I'm going shopping." And he went, "No, I'd like you to go to the ward, and I want to get you in for pre-surgery." Pardon? What? And he said, "Yeah, I don't like what's going on in the neck, so I want to get you in surgery and get that out." Okay, so, I'm a straightforward kind of guy. Hit me with it, doc. What is it? Is it cancer? What's the score? Don't know. And that's all I got. Don't know what it is. But one particular consultant, and I will never forget, basically turned around and told me, "I'm fat. So because I'm fat, this is a lump of fat in your neck." So I went, "Okay." And he said, it's just fat." Well, you know your own body. It wasn't. It was a growing lump. It wasn't a fat build-up. It was a growing lump. So, yeah. I'm going in for surgery, they've told me. So you can imagine Christmas that year, for me, I'm doing the bloke thing, we keep a lot inside, wasn't great. Wasn't pleasant. 17th of January, I'm in for surgery. And they were supposed to do a 1/2-inch incision in my neck to remove this allegedly small lump. When I came out of surgery, I'd had a 4-inch cut in my neck, like this, had a drain, and can honestly say I'd felt better. Turns out when I actually went in, the lump was a lot bigger than they'd thought through the tests and whatever, and they needed to obviously increase the size of the incision. So that was that. Didn't tell me what it was. Just said, "I'll have to have the results of the scan, the results of the biopsy afterwards, and we'll let you know." Well, they never let me know, and I never asked. Do you want to know? I don't know. Everybody's different. For me, I didn't really want to know. Slightly off topic, but my opinion about death row, for example, if you're convicted and you're sitting on death row, the worst part about that is sitting on death row, waking up every day knowing one day is going to be your last. It's not the actual day of going, although that's pretty grim, but it's the 12 years beforehand. And I kind of had the same philosophy that if that was something very, very bad, I wouldn't necessarily want to know, because then you're just waking up every day counting down the days. It's a death sentence that you're aware of. So I didn't want to know. So, right or wrong, whether you think I'm crazy or not, I don't know. To be honest, I don't care. That was my choice. It was my personal choice. That's what I chose to do. So I didn't bother to do anything. And went about my life quite happily. Until about 2020, 2021. And I started to realise that I'd got a lump in my throat. And I think I'd probably realised it before I actually acknowledged it. And it wasn't just in one side, it was here. So, you know, your mind starts thinking, oh, here we go. So back to the doctors I go. And guess what? Test, 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 test. Best part of 2 years. And after, again, multiple scans, etc., etc., I was finally scheduled for a PET scan. The consultant I saw, and I'm not dissing the consultant, this time this consultant, brilliant. He was actually a surgeon as well. Really good, really good. But can only operate within the constraints that he has, which is the NHS. So definitely nothing against the consultant, but it was in and out, in and out, in and out. Tests, results, tests, results. The last consultation I had was, there's 2 lumps in your neck. We definitely need to remove one, and we just need really to decide if we remove both. One was deemed to be my thyroid and one was deemed to be a parathyroid. Do we remove one or do we remove both at the same time? Do you have 2 surgeries? All of this kind of stuff. So I'm like, oh, great. So it was decided, just to be certain, before they decided to do 2 surgeries or 1 surgery, let's do a PET scan. That will give us absolutely definitive, 100% what it is, and then we can go, right, it's 1 surgery, we'll get them both out at the same time. So that was what I was waiting for. I was waiting for the appointment for the PET scan. Well, months went by, and by the time I actually got the appointment, I was out of the country. I wasn't here, I wasn't in Russia, I was just out of the country, I think on holiday or something, and it was like, well, we're going to have to reschedule. So that bounced it again. Then I was waiting for the results of another test for something slightly different. And fast forward probably 11 months when we decided we're coming to Russia. So we come to Russia. I still hadn't had the PET scan and I still hadn't had the results from the previous test. And whilst I was here, I got an appointment for the PET scan and I got the results from the previous test. My wife suggested that we go to a local doctor's, and I'm thinking, okay, can't see the point, I know what I need. We go to a local consultant who's a specialist in this kind of thing, and he was horrified, absolutely horrified. Literally to the point of putting his hands like this on his head going, I can't believe this. The lump that I had in my neck after an initial scan was measured at 96 millimetres. So, tennis ball size. And I had several blood tests and several ultrasound scans. The ultrasound scanners here, from what I can see, are far, far more advanced than what we have in the UK. Certainly my experience. Much more detailed, much more detailed. And literally you just walk in and oh, I'll do your scan now. None of this booking it weeks and months in advance and special preparation. It's like, lay down, I'll scan you. You know, it's that routine. And he was just horrified at the size of this lump and why. And the first thing he said to me was, why haven't you treated it? Why hasn't this been treated? And I said, treated with what? How? The options I have in the UK is surgery. They've got to cut it out. And he went, what? And he basically explained that the reason he's so shocked is they don't see this problem here in Russia because they treat it, they medicate, and the problem goes. And it isn't a problem. So to see somebody with my condition with lumps this big in the neck, he said, I just don't, you know, even in small villages, you don't see this. It doesn't happen here. Again, this is my experience. So that's why he was so horrified, and he couldn't understand that the UK wasn't treating this. He's just in shock, and I think certainly in Russia, everybody holds the UK in very high esteem and thinks everything's so much better in the UK. Any Russians listening, and do you know what? Any UK residents listening? No, it ain't. No, it ain't. We think it is. It should be. But it isn't. So, he said, look, I've never seen anybody with lumps this big in the neck. I'm going to suggest that we treat it how we would normally treat this when they're much, much, much smaller. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's try it. If it works, then maybe you can avoid surgery. If not, then we'll look at that as an option. So he put me on treatment. Fast forward to today. No surgery. Last time I went, had the lump measured. It's 24 millimetres, not 96. It isn't uncomfortable anymore, where it used to be. You can imagine, maybe, you can't, I don't know, but having at least one lump in your neck, 96 millimetres, it's uncomfortable. If I put my head down, it was uncomfortable. If I turned my head, it was uncomfortable. Swallowing was getting uncomfortable. But I have no sense that there's anything wrong in my neck. If I feel around, I can feel something now, but it's so much smaller. I've got to look for it. I don't get any discomfort from it anymore. It's not causing me a issue that I'm aware of anymore. All of my blood levels are exactly where they should be, and the treatment is a pill, and that, touch wood, has dealt with the issue that, had I remained in the UK, would have resulted in another surgery. There wasn't any other discussion about anything else. It was surgery. You're going to, it's either a big surgery or two smaller surgeries, but it's surgery. So the purpose of this video is really to talk about the healthcare in Russia that people have asked me about. I'm not a Russian citizen, so I don't qualify for free healthcare, so we pay for it. But blood tests are about £6. And when you have a blood test here, the blood is taken by a professional, somebody that has done it 1,000,000 times, not somebody that has been reconstituted into the NHS because they're so understaffed and that they've deemed taking blood as a basic task and they've given it to a 70-year-old retiree as a job, which is what I had. The last time I gave blood in the UK, it was one of the most painful experiences I've had. Literally stabbing me in the arm with the needle, full depth, and raking around in my arm trying to draw blood. And I literally was screaming at this woman to stop. She then tried in the back of my hand. The next day, the back of my hand was black. It was a disaster. I mean, literally, I just said stop and no more, done. Here, you don't know they've touched you. And I've had so many blood tests now. I mean, when I came here, having a blood test after the last experience in the UK, I was like, oh God, no, I don't want that again. But I'm a big boy, apparently, and you've just got to get on with it. But I had a blood test here and I didn't know she touched me. And it's been the same ever since, and I've had multiple blood tests. But anyhow, the cost is £6. £6. But what the amazing thing is I can ring up the doctors this morning and see him this afternoon. I can have a blood test this afternoon. And I can have the results this afternoon. Or the worst case, tomorrow morning. And they will be emailed to me directly as my record. Not hidden away in a file somewhere where they might allow me the information. No. They're your records. They're your medical records. So they're sent to you for you to keep. It's your responsibility to keep your own medical records. And every other test I've had, we've paid for. But the last 2 tests I had were scans. One was a CT scan, and the other one was a tomography scan. Not entirely sure, can't remember. But we rang up on, say, a Tuesday afternoon and went in on Wednesday morning to have those scans at a completely separate clinic. But that's how quickly you go and see people. And the cost of those 2 scans was £56. I asked when we would get the results, and they said, well, if you want to take a seat in the waiting room, the doctor will write it up now. We had places that we could go, so we actually said to the doctor, don't rush, we'll go into town. Is tomorrow okay? And he just went, well, of course. So when we went back to collect the results the next day, not only did we get it written up, but it was also given to us as an option to have it on disc or on USB stick. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your questions about healthcare. Probably doesn't. It's far too much and more in depth that I could go, probably. But my experience of the healthcare in Russia is that it is far, far better than I've ever received in the UK. Currently, whether that's specific to me or not, I don't know. The cost in Russia is minuscule in comparison. The speed and efficiency of the medical service here is something to be in awe of. The UK needs a shake, it really does. And I mean, from what I've seen of America, oh my God, the horror stories I've seen of people losing their houses. You know, somebody has sent me some info that a relative who'd had a significant event in their life whilst at work ended up in hospital, and the path that was on meant that their insurance was cancelled. The hospital put a lien against their house, a charge, and they lost their house whilst they're in hospital. I mean, I'm sorry, what? That I can't say it doesn't happen here in Russia because I don't know. I haven't been all around Russia. I'm not completely familiar with everything that happens in Russia. But based on my experience, it's ridiculous. It's unheard of. So, yeah, in answer to the original question, what's healthcare like in Russia? In my experience, excellent. Now, to give you another example, sorry if I'm waffling, but when we came here for our first time in 2021, came on holiday for 3 weeks, as I've mentioned before. In the first or maybe the second week, my wife had to go to the doctors, to an oncologist, which is skin related, just for a checkup. So I went along with her, and I went and had my first experience of a Russian doctor's. And this place looked more like a 5-star hotel reception. Walked in the door and it was marble floors and chandeliers. So doctors. You had to put little plastic things on your shoes straight away to keep it clean. It's an obvious thing, really. So everybody's walking around with these fancy shoes. You all know the film. And I went in with my wife, and she had a consultation with a doctor or consultant. And this guy he spoke very good English, but he certainly wasn't fluent, but he spoke very good English, so I had a bit of a conversation with him. But one of the things that stood out the most about that was that he had a Bluetooth headset in his ear. And he was taking calls from patients whilst he was in consultation with us, whilst he was talking to my wife. And he was just literally saying, one moment, tapping his ear, blah, 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 off, and then carried on the conversation. And he was taking calls from patients. And my wife has his number, his phone number. And she can ring him directly at any time. And if he's in a consultation with a patient, he'll take the call. Now, I don't know if that's common, but that, again, is our experience. Now, that blew my mind. Can you imagine that? A doctor speaking to you? Blew my mind. Anyhow, whilst the wife is talking to the doctor, I mentioned about moles. You know what moles are? Brown skin tag things that, I think most people know what a mole is. Some can turn cancerous, etc., etc. Anyhow, from childhood, I'd had several on my neck. I had one in my hairline, which every time I cut my hair, I was aware of it, but if I ever went to a barber shop and they shaved the back of my head, they would cut it. So every time. And I had a couple more in various places under my arm, on the inside of my leg. The inside of my leg one was very irritating in the summer, wearing jeans, it would be sore. Went to the NHS about it, and you need to book an appointment with a nurse, and you need to make an appointment. You go to the nurse, I've got nothing for 2 months, and then the nurse is on. You know the story. So tried 2 or 3 times, but never really followed it up because nothing was ever straightforward. Anyhow, whilst we're there, I said to my wife about it, can you have a look? So I just want to make sure that they're not going to be a problem later on. And he's, yep, no problem. So he had a look at the moles. Yep, they're all fine. Yep, they're all fine. And he turned around and he said, do you want me to remove them? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, I can remove them now for you with the laser. Okay then. So he, bearing in mind, I'm not a Russian citizen, it's the first time he's met me. He then removed every mole that I have on my body, all of these external moles. So the one in my hairline, the ones around my neck, under my arms, the one on the inside of my leg, with a laser, pain-free. Right there, right then, in the consulting room, where he had a plethora of equipment, just stuff I've never seen before, never had any concept of. And why would I? I'm not a medical professional, but he just wheeled out this very fancy-looking machine and removed them all right there, right then, pain-free. Now, me being British, I'm sitting there thinking, can't wait to see the bill for this one, because I didn't ask. I just thought, do you know what? It'd be nice to get rid of them, and if it's a few grand, I don't know, it's not going to be, but you understand, I didn't think about the cost. The cost was going to be whatever it was. So after we finished, gave me some 2 pots of solution. Put this one on first and then put this one afterwards, do this for 3 days, do this for 6 days, yada yada. And then he said, thanks very much, go out to reception. So I thought, okay, we'll go out to reception, make another appointment, I'll have to pay for all of this. And we went to reception, and the wife made an appointment, and I said, well, what about paying? And the wife turned around and went, paying for what? I said, well, what the doctor's just done for me. And she went, no, it's free. Pardon? He did it for free. I'm sorry. What? He basically said to the wife had obviously said, you know, what do we need to pay for this? And he went, no, you know, he's come to Russia. You know, it's nice to see somebody here coming to Russia. No, it's no cost. So he did it for free. Right there, right then. That may not be a big thing to you, but I'll never forget that. And it was a big thing for me, because that was another thing when we first came here that opened my eyes. So, is healthcare better in Russia? My experience? Hell yes. Most definitely. There are going to be variations to that, of course. There's always going to be. And you're always going to have somebody saying, oh, but, all this or that. But again, this channel is about my experiences, my opinions, and what's happened to me. And I don't think I'm the luckiest man alive, apart from when it comes to my wife. So, I can honestly say, I think the healthcare system here, in comparison to what I'm used to in the UK, is far superior. The cost, the waiting time, what waiting time? The way that you get the results, the in-depth content of the results, the equipment, the whole diagnosis process, the treatment, everything seems better here, far better. And I haven't even started talking to you about laser eye surgery, because that's another thing. But I won't in this video. That's for another day maybe. Anyhow, I've waffled on for nearly half an hour. I'm sure that's fairly boring to some of you. But if you're interested in healthcare about Russia, that's my experience. It's good, real good. Thanks for watching. Please continue to watch. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to The Plastic Russian. Thank you.